One of my earliest memories is getting this copy of Pokemon Yellow for Christmas as a kid. I loved having Pikachu follow me, being able to get all the Kanto starter Pokemon, and feeling I was Ash Ketchum battling Jesse and James and catching whatever Pokemon I saw. When I was a little bit older, I replayed Yellow version again and had the goal to catch them all, but I was too preoccupied with Pokemon Diamond and Pearl at the time, so I gave up and never reached my goal. Over 15 years later, I decided to finally achieve that goal and catch them all in a Pokemon game, something I've somehow never done before, and what better place to start than with Generation 1 on my original copy of Pokemon Yellow I got all those years ago. We'll be doing things a bit differently though, and instead of catching them all, we're going to start a new game and do a Professor's Oak challenge. In this challenge, we must catch every single Pokemon possible and complete every possible Pokedex entry in Yellow version before obtaining the next gym badge to make sure Professor Oak is proud. No glitches allowed, no trading, and I'm even playing on actual hardware thanks to this Game Boy player, meaning no speed up and no cheats. This task will take far longer than just completing the dex normally, and because of that, I stream this entire challenge over on my Twitch channel every single day, so be sure to follow me over there to see more of these challenges like this live, linked in the description. Part 1. Brock in a Hard Place. Starting off, I name a rival Green because that's his name. It's also Blue, or maybe Gary, I don't really know, but while Professor Oak is talking here are all the Pokemon we need to obtain before fighting Brock for our first gym badge. There's 17 Pokemon, which doesn't seem too bad, and for this guide I also reference Mulax's guide on a Yellow version Oak challenge that I'll link in the description. We have the usual suspects to capture. Pikachu, which doesn't evolve in Yellow version, and you can't catch any other Pikachu, so you don't have to worry about Raichu at all. Caterpie, Pidgey, Rattata, the Nidos, a few others, doesn't seem too bad, right? A lot of these Pokemon evolve at a relatively low level, but then there's Mankey and Pidgey, which took up the bulk of our time here. Mankey evolves into Primeape at level 28, then we don't get Pidgeot until level 36, which is by far one of the longest grinds we have to do in this entire game, and might even be the longest grind in the entire game, period. Catching the base Pokemon wasn't an issue at all since none of these Pokemon encounters are particularly rare, so getting the base 8 Pokemon we needed was very simple, and now we just have to focus on evolutions for the last 9 Pokedex entries needed. Pikachu is useless to us, so I boxed it, but we will need Pikachu later on for something really important. In Generation 1, you can't rebattle trainers like you can in the newer Pokemon games, so after defeating the first few trainers in the Viridian Forest and our rival at around the 3-hour mark, we still have quite a few levels to grind. You may notice that Pidgey's already level 21 after the rival fight, and I decided to delay its evolution to Pidgeotto until it hits level 28 and learns Wing Attack, as Pidgeotto doesn't learn Wing Attack till level 31. Having more PP is very valuable in this playthrough, and the only time we need to heal is when we run out of PP anyway, so having more attacks to knock out these low-level Pidgeys, Caterpies, and Metapods is really nice. They give such little experience in the forest though, but the real prize here is Pidgeotto. This is the rare encounter in the Viridian Forest for Yellow version with a 5% encounter rate, but it gives 145 EXP when it appears at level 9. I guess this is where Faulkner got his level 9 Pidgeotto at, as Pidgey isn't supposed to evolve until level 16, but that 145 EXP is over 2 times the EXP any other Pokemon in the forest can give us, so I want to get as many Pidgeottos as possible. Some Pokemon give as little as 30 EXP, which is roughly 5 times less than a single Pidgeotto, so we're gonna be here for a while. And yeah, this took a while, except for the 2 Nidorans, which evolve at level 16, which wasn't too bad, and were my first 2 evolutions of this playthrough. I held off on evolving Caterpie for now, as I ran out of party space, so I just left it in the PC, and it only needs to be leveled up to level 10, which isn't so bad. Since we're playing on an actual cartridge and not using speed up or any other cheats, this will take a very long time, as doing this type of challenge on an actual cartridge copy of the game and official hardware isn't very common, so I'm glad that I was able to record my entire run of this game and have it archived on my VODs channel, linked in the description, in case you guys want to see the entire run, since a lot of people just aren't willing to put in the time it takes to do something as ridiculous as this challenge. I won't spoil just how long it took me to complete this challenge, but it was a long time. And this part of the game is pretty simple and boring, it's just grinding in the forest since it's our only option for levels right now. I had a lot of people coming in chat asking me if this really was the best place to grind, and because the only other place we can grind is Route 1 and Route 2, it was the best. We had an easier time with some Pokemon than others, like Spearow, which learns Peck at a pretty low level and is able to one-shot all these bug types even while being a lower level than them until we evolve into Fearow. And since Weedle isn't in the wild and Yellow version at all, we didn't have to worry about any of our Pokemon getting poisoned while leveling up, which was a nice bonus compared to Red and Blue. I'll just cut to the chase here. All of this grinding took about 16 hours total. Yes, I grinded up my Pidgey all the way to level 36 in the Viridian Forest against mostly level 4 to 6 Caterpies for 16 hours. 16 hours in the Viridian Forest. Was it worth it? Honestly, I don't know, but if spending that much time in the Viridian Forest doesn't deserve a like and a subscribe, I don't know what does. This isn't the only part of the game that requires hours of grinding, but since the game opens up the more we progress through it, we'll have more options and tools to work with to make it a lot more bearable. I tried my best to be as efficient as possible, except against the gym leaders where I tried to use suboptimal Pokemon. Flying types, for example, are not traditionally good against Brock, but how often do you see someone use a level 36 Pidgeot to beat Brock in Yellow version? Probably never, but Max the Pidgeot will remain as a key Pokemon on our party throughout the game. And there you have it, about 16.5 hours, Badge 1 completed. Part 2, Misty Mines. Defeating Brock took us to day 3 of streaming this. Now we have to focus on Misty. Here are all the Pokemon we need to obtain before facing her, which will bring our Pokedex total to 50 Pokemon. The game opens up a lot more here with more trainers to fight, making grinding a lot easier than it was in the forest. I never want to go back there ever again. I spend way more time in the Viridian Forest than any other person ever should, that I can still hear Caterpie's cries in my dreams even to this day. We also have to plan a bit more now. There's a few trainers in our way as we try to make it to Mount Moon, the next big task in the game. I avoid as many of these trainers as possible until we get a new Pokemon, like Sandshrew, then the real prize, the deal of the century even, a beautiful Magikarp we can buy outside of Mount Moon for only 500 Pokédollars. What a bargain, and I love Magikarp so much, and I always buy it here when I get the chance in a Kanto-based game. We have to use Max the Pidgeot to switch train a lot here though, since our new Pokemon are really low level, and one of them, I won't say who, doesn't even have an attacking move at all until it evolves, and then once it evolves we can even use it in battle anyway, so we have to switch train it a lot. Once in Mount Moon, there's a few Pokemon we need to catch, like Zubat, Geodude, then Paras and Clefairy in the later sections of the cave. Geodude was the unsung hero of this part of the game, allowing me to be much more efficient with our EXP gain, since instead of using Pidgeot to switch train and wasting EXP on it, Geodude was able to hold its own and tank hits against the plethora of Zubats and Rattatas in Mount Moon. It's crucial that we also pick up both of the Moonstones that can be found here, as if we leave Mount Moon without both of the Moonstones in our bag, we can't go back until after beating Misty, essentially ruining the run, which would force us to start over again and go back to the Viridian Forest, and I really do not want to do that. After catching Paras and Clefairy, I lay waste to the super nerd, steal his Helix fossil, then have a run-in with Jesse and James. I forgot I was playing Yellow version since I didn't have Pikachu follow me around, so I totally forgot that we have to fight Jesse and James here. They have Ekans, Koffing, and Meowth, all of which you can't catch in Yellow version, which is a real bummer, and since we can't get both fossils, we won't be able to get a Kabuto in this run either. But at least we get Lord Helix. Praise Lord Helix. After the battle, I exit the cave, and before jumping down the ledge to the point of no return, I look at the dock one more time to make sure I didn't miss anything. Wait, I need 2 Clefairy? Oh crap, I need 2 Clefairy. Oh, good thing I checked. We need a second Clefairy because we need the first one to evolve into Clefable with a Moonstone later on, and use the second Clefairy for an in-game trade as well. I can't believe I almost missed that second Clefairy. I don't think the Twitch chat would have let me live that down if I did it, as I would have had to restart. After getting Clefairy number 2, we make it into Cerulean City where everything is blue, but at least I'm not green or I would die. Haha, you get it, because our rival is green and that's how that song goes. I'm sorry. Before we fight Green though, I use the 2 Moonstones we have on each of our Nidos to get Nidoking and Nidoqueen, bumping our Pokedex total to 25 Pokemon obtained. The next Pokemon we can get before going on the Nugget Bridge is Bulbasaur, my favorite Kanto starter if you couldn't tell by the Bulbasaur shrine I have in my setup behind me, but there's one problem. This NPC only gives you Bulbasaur if your Pikachu has high enough happiness, and it's been in the PC for the last 20 hours of gameplay, so it's not very happy. Even Generation 1 had these annoying happiness mechanics to some extent, but there is a workaround for Pikachu. One thing that makes everyone happy. Drugs. Okay, seriously, don't do drugs. They are very not good for you, but in this case we can boost Pikachu's happiness by giving it potions when it has full HP. It has no effect and doesn't use up our potion in our bag, but it still has the effect to boost Pikachu's happiness anyway because Generation 1 just works like that. Now that Pikachu is happy, we can get the Bulbasaur, add it to the team, then box Pikachu again for what possibly could be forever. If only I could evolve even to Raichu with a Thunderstone, but no, this has to be the special Pikachu edition where you just can't do that. At this point I notice another hurdle in the run, the PC system. In Generation 1, the box limit is only 20 per box, and you can't move Pokemon like you can in the newer games, and you have to save your game to switch boxes. On top of that, if your box is full, the game doesn't let you catch new Pokemon until you go back to the PC and switch to a box that isn't full. It's annoying and archaic, but hey, that's Generation 1. For the rest of Cerulean City, we can pick up the hidden rare candy we'll need later on, then do some more grinding. While leveling up our new Pokemon, I realized that I was a little behind of where I wanted to be in this game at this point. I was playing it way too safe by grinding too much on wild Pokemon, when I should be focusing more on the trainer fights and try to use Pokemon that needed to be leveled up, and avoid using Pidgeot as much as possible. After realizing that, I head up north and fight Green, and Geodude really shined here. It can take hits from most of our rivals' Pokemon no problem, and outside of the grass-type Pokemon some trainers around this area have, it can really hold its own. Once we clear the bridge and say no to joining Team Rocket, we get our second Kanto starter in Charmander from this guy. That is yet another Pokemon we have to grind up to pass level 30, while only having a single gym badge. Fun. Charmander can at least help against those pesky grass types that Geodude can't take on. We can also catch some of those same grass type Pokemon in this area, namely Oddish, Bellsprout, then also Venonat, which I nearly forgot about. There's a lot of trainers to fight here too, and a lot more Pokemon we need to grind up to reach the goal of 50 Pokemon before we fight Misty for Professor Oak's challenge. While these Professor Oak challengers are very grindy and take up a ton of time, it was still a really enjoyable experience for me to play Pokemon in this new way. It almost felt like I was playing Legends Arceus, but in Pokemon Yellow version, but in a more exaggerated way, since instead of catching 10 of the same Pokemon, I had to level up against a lot of low-level Pokemon. Bulbasaur evolves to Ivysaur before we reach Bill, get the SSN ticket, we fight Team Rocket again and get the Dig TM, which we're just gonna sell later on since we need a lot of money in this run. Then we go on over to Route 5 south of Cerulean City. There are two Pokemon we need to get here in Jigglypuff and Abra. Jigglypuff is strangely only level 3 here, but other Pokemon are around level 10 or so, but we can box it for now until we get another Moonstone to evolve to Wigglytuff later on. And then there's Abra. It only knows Teleport and runs away after the first turn, so after getting frustrated by them breaking out of the first Pokeball then teleporting away, I harnessed some of my big brain Pokemon trainer powers and put Bellsprout in the lead while searching for Abra. You may be wondering how this bell pepper plant thing can help against this. What even is Abra? A cat? A fetus? I don't know, but Bellsprout helps with catching Abra because if we use Wrap, then the Abra can't escape. Wrap is a busted move in Generation 1, because if you land, the other Pokemon can't move for a few turns until Wrap ends, and they take damage every single turn. I had to calculate if our Bellsprout can even outspeed a level 7 Wild Abra, because I'm that down bad to just catch this stupid teleporting rat, cat, fetus thing. Being in the Vermilion Forest for 16 hours really changed me. Nonetheless, the Wrap idea worked for Abra, which brings us to 33 Pokedex entries. I hope you're happy, Professor Oak. Even though we haven't beaten Misty yet, we can still make it over to Vermilion City to fight more trainers and get some more encounters. Charmander evolves to Charmeleon before entering Vermilion City. What is this back sprite, by the way? Generation 1 had a lot of weird sprites in general, and although Yellow version updated a lot of the worst front sprites from Red and Blue version, all of the back sprites are the same, so we have to look at whatever this is supposed to be. How is this Charmeleon? There are some important things to do around Vermilion City though, like get the bike voucher, head east to catch a Drowsy, then into the Diglett's cave for Diglett and Dugtrio. It may not seem like it, as the only thing we can get in this cave are 2 Pokemon to catch for our Pokedex, but this cave will also be one of the most crucial parts of this Professor Oak's challenge in Pokemon Yellow version. Once getting both encounters in Diglett's cave, we can go to the other side onto the part of Route 2 we couldn't access previously. We can trade that second Clefairy we caught in Mount Moon for Mr. Mime. This guy is an abomination, so go into my PC for eternity where you belong. That's 38 Pokemon so far for our Pokedex, and only 12 more before we can take on Misty. That's all we need to catch up until now, and all we need to do now is level up Pokemon. Instead of going to the SSN right away though, I decided to grind up some Pokemon in the Diglett's cave since we have a few grass types to level up. Digletts are weak, so this isn't a bad idea, even for our current ace Pokemon Geodude, and once my Pokemon are a bit of a higher level, I go to the SSN. Around that time, we also have another evolution.
Geodude, you've served me so well. Geodude was my crutch Pokemon for this part of the game. It killed so many Pidgeys. It tanked so many hits from stupid Rattatas. And now it's a Graveler, so I don't need to use it at all anymore. And you're gonna send the PC forever.
Graveler, or Geodude I guess, thank you for your service. That concludes day 3, where I played for about 7 hours on stream, so on day 4 we can use other Pokemon like Ivysaur and Charmeleon that are strong now, so we head into the SSN and fight all of the trainers on it, and there's a lot of them. They give more EXP than the Digletts and the Dugtrios, however grinding the Diglett's Tunnel is still a very effective way of grinding and probably the best place to grind against wild Pokemon in the entire game. The SSN was a lot of Charmeleon for the random Pokemon like Nidoran that I couldn't hit super effectively with anything else on our team, then Ivysaur for all those pesky water-type foes all of these sailors have. Switch training Abra was effective here as well, as at this point of the game, leveling up Abra to level 16 really shouldn't take long, and bam, there's Kadabra. We don't have to worry about Alakazam, since the Professor's Oak challenge doesn't require trait evolutions and only requires us to catch every single Pokemon obtainable in your one copy of the game, in this case just this one single yellow version. There is one trait evolution we can technically get though, but that's a little later on. While clearing out the SSN, Magikarp was in the daycare as well, which some people say is a no-no in the Professor's Oak challenge, but I'd figured I'd at least try it since this is my first time doing it. I didn't have it in there for too long since I was scared I'd run out of money by leveling it up too much and not being able to take it out of the daycare, since money can be really tight in this game, especially once we hit the game corner, which I'm not exactly looking forward to. After clearing out our rival in the SSN and getting cut, we can head east and grind more of our Pokemon. That's the theme of this challenge, grinding Pokemon and figuring out the most optimal time and place to level up each of those Pokemon. Once all the trainers are cleared on this route, the next best place to grind is, you guessed it, the Diglett's Cave, or the Diglett's Tunnel. I kind of see them interchangeably and I kind of hear them interchangeably. Is Diglett's Cave? Is Diglett's Tunnel? Is it both? I don't know, but you know what I mean. And I have to say, this run was made possible by the Diglett's Tunnel, or Diglett's Cave. Leveling up here gets us Gyarados, putting us to 41 total Pokedex entries. Only 9 more before we can fight Misty, which include Bellsprout to Weepinbell, Oddish to Gloom, Zubat to Golbat that's fading away from the 3-point line, Paris to Parasect, which will surprisingly come in handy much later on in the game, Sandshrew to Sandslash, Drowsy to Hypno, Ivysaur to Venusaur, Charmeleon to Charizard, and then finally Venonat to Venomoth, which took the longest amount of time since Venonat has a horrendous Generation 1 moveset and evolves at level 31. This is part of what makes grinding in Yellow version a bit more difficult than newer games, is a lot of these Generation 1 Pokemon only get a small handful of offensive damaging moves, most of which are weak and don't one-shot until they're a much higher level. Yet another reason why Gen 1 is Gen Fun. I made a bit of a mistake here too by trying to use Repels once my Pokemon were above level 22 to force Dugtrio encounters while grinding here for this next section of the game for more EXP. This did technically work, however Repels work differently in Gen 1, where if a Repel is used, the game will still roll the encounters for those lower level Pokemon, but they won't trigger the actual cutscene for the encounter and you'll just skip the Pokemon. This means you just skip the low level encounters, yes, but you will still have to walk around a lot for Dugtrio to spawn. In newer games, Repels will still make you encounter the same amount of Pokemon, just alter the encounter chances of the higher level Pokemon to match the Repel. Confusing and annoying, but that's Generation 1, and ultimately the Repel trick just wasted some money and only saved marginal time. And I'm really going to regret buying all those Repels later. Most of day 4 was just spent grinding all of these Pokemon until we reach the 50 Pokemon obtained so we can finally fight Misty. I continue the tradition of using sub-optimal Pokemon against gym leaders and use Charizard to obliterate Misty's water-type team. Using a level 36 Charizard against her pathetic low-level alien starfish Pokemon isn't something you get to do very often, something you guys probably don't see often either. I still don't really know what Staryu and Starmie are, by the way, but they always reminded me of robot starfish that aliens would make. Oddly specific example, but I must have liked these Pokemon so much when I first played through Generation 1, since I remember my Elite Four team having 2 Starmies on it. After beating Misty at the 29-hour mark, instead of going right to fight Lieutenant Surge, we go back to the Rock Tunnel since, remember, we have to get every single possible Pokedex entry in our Pokedex before each gym fight, and being able to use Cut outside of battle after beating Misty unlocks a lot more of the Kanto region. For now though, on the way to the Rock Tunnel we catch a Magnemite and Machop, but don't have to worry about grinding up that Machop just yet. We find another Moonstone to evolve Clefairy into Clefable for Pokemon number 51. Along with the Machop and Magnemite we just caught, that brings us to a total of 53 Pokemon so far. Part 3. Surging Pokedex entries. That concludes day 4 of the stream, which consisted of me playing Pokemon Yellow for about 10 hours. The next day, we begin day 5 as we feel alive to do even more grinding. At least we have a ton of Pokemon to catch first before we focus on grinding again, but we have 30 hours played and only 2 gym badges. While streaming this challenge a lot, people ask me if they should start their own Professor's Oak challenge, and I'm not saying you shouldn't start your own challenge, but be prepared to spend this much time in the game with such little progress. It is definitely a huge time commitment that a lot of people just aren't willing to do. This next section up until the 3rd gym badge has a total of 51 Pokedex entries we need to show Professor Oak, which is more than the first 2 badges combined at only 50, and we're 30 hours in. This is going to include some fun Pokemon like Porygon costing 9,999 coins in the game corner, the super low encounter rate Safari Zone Pokemon, and there's quite a few of those, and of course Dragonite, which we get by grinding up Dragonair all the way to level 55. All of that before 3 gym badges. The only new encounter we get in the Rock Tunnel is Onix, so the only Pokemon we have to worry about leveling up for now is Magnemite. We have to switch training a lot though, since Magnemite can't handle all of these rock types and electric types that the trainers here tend to have. This wastes some EXP as I switch training into Venusaur to knock out those Pokemon, which doesn't need any more levels, but Magnemite can't handle Geodudes on its own, so we don't really have a choice. You might be thinking that we can just use the EXP All, which you do get in Vermilion City from one of Professor Oak's aides, and that would be more efficient, since we can just give Magnemite some EXP without actually sending it out into battle, but the EXP All is only given to the player after you beat Lieutenant Surge, and we're still a long ways away from that. The same goes for Squirtle, which isn't given to the player by Officer Jenny until after she sees that you beat Lieutenant Surge. I am literally going to have a Dragonite, Porygon, and all of these ridiculous Safari Zone Pokemon before Squirtle, a gift Pokemon. This challenge is pretty weird. I hope you're happy though, Professor Oak. Once we make it through the tunnel into Lavender Town, we have to skip the tower for now and go right towards Celadon City, avoiding as many trainers as possible along the way, so we can battle them again later on when we have more Pokemon to grind up than just the single Magnemite. In Celadon City, we get the gift Eevee, then a few evolutionary stones can be bought here to evolve our Weeping Bell to Victory Bell, Gloom into Vileplume, and then Eevee into Vaporeon. I am not going to say the Vaporeon joke here, I just chose Vaporeon because that's the evolution I used as a kid. Don't be weird, chat. Either way, these three Pokemon will be boxed forever while I catch Doduo and focus on taking on the Team Rocket Game Corner to level up more of our Pokemon. In the Game Corner, we defeat Giovanni and we get another Moonstone to evolve our Jigglypuff into Wigglytuff, then head back towards Lavender Town and beat all of the trainers we skipped along the way. This finally evolves Magnemite into Magneton for Pokedex entry 61, allowing us to focus more on leveling up our Doduo. Now, I didn't realize this until writing the script for this video, but we actually could have captured Dodrio, the evolution to Doduo, on Route 17, or the Cycling Road, after obtaining the Pokeflute to move the Snorlax out of the way. Dodrio is only a 1% encounter on the Cycling Road, and we didn't have any other Pokemon to level up for a little while, so it isn't the biggest waste, especially since once we beat our rival in the Lavender Tower and go up the tower, we can just catch Ghastly to Haunter, then 2 Cubones because they're cool. Well, they are cool, I guess, but I really need the second Cubone trade to an NPC, then we can level up the first one that we caught, or so I thought. I actually wasted even more EXP on this one Cubone, not realizing we can also catch a Marowak in the Safari Zone. Oops. While this small section isn't as efficiently as it possibly could be, we are still making a decent pace and catching up to where I want to be, and we can still send Team Rocket blasting off again, then trade this second Cubone we just captured to an NPC for a Machoke, which then evolves into Machamp right away, giving us 2 more Pokedex entries at the price of 1. Next, we have to head south of Lavender Town through the Silence Bridge. Not a lot of people know that this bridge is called the Silence Bridge, as you don't even have to go through this area at all. We can play our Pokeflute to catch the Snorlax in our way, then meet the Fishing Guru to get a Super Rod, which is going to be incredibly important. Yellow version has a lot of Pokemon we have to fish up, and a lot more water types than I realized before starting this challenge. We need to catch and use them all for this challenge, starting with Horsey, then fish up some more for a Seadra, which is Pokemon number 69 for us. Nice. Farther down the bridge, we can catch a Farfetch'd in the grass and fish for a Tentacool as well. We can encounter Tentacruel elsewhere before the 3rd gym badge, so we don't have to worry about leveling up Tentacool for now, and we can continue to level up our Dodrio, wasting a bit more EXP instead of going for the 1% Dodrio that I didn't realize was a thing. 1% sounds like low odds, and it is, but we'll endure plenty of 1% Pokemon soon enough. Before we even go to the Cycling Road, Doduo evolves anyway, and we can focus more on Cubone, which is just another Pokemon that I wasted some EXP on, unfortunately. A lot of the Pokemon we catch in this section outside of the Safari Zone don't need to be leveled up anyway, but it still wasted a little bit of time. Now we can make our way to the Cycling Road to fish up Shelder, Poliwag, and Goldeen. South of Fuchsia City, we can also fish up Staryu and Tentacruel, then go into the Cycling Road for Ponyta on our way back to Celadon City. We have a few stone evolutions to take care of, like Cloyster and Starmie with water stones, and then I just decided to get the rest of the evolutionary stones we needed for later on, so I don't forget about them and run out of money by accident, which is a real concern at this point of the game, all thanks to you, Porygon. Next, we travel around the region to fish up some more Pokemon that the Super Rod gives us access to. These Pokemon are Krabby and Kingler by Bill's house, and wow, I thought there were more Pokemon when I started writing this section, but it's only 2 Pokemon that we have to travel kind of far for, as we still don't have access to fly, by the way. Aside from a few more level up evolutions and the Game Corner Pokemon, the only Pokemon we have left to catch are in the Safari Zone to bring us to the whopping 104 Pokedex entries needed for Professor Oak to allow us to get the 3rd gym badge. And look, the Safari Zone is a pain. The mechanics are so wonky to a point where the bait and rock options are just useless, and you're always better off just tossing Safari Balls and praying for the best. I didn't fully understand the Safari Zone mechanics at first, but the first Pokemon I decided to get here was Dratini. You can fish up Dratini in the first area of the Safari Zone, which also doesn't waste any steps so you don't have to move for this. I had a few fails on Dratini since Safari Zone Pokemon tend to flee a lot, but then we encountered the rare spawn of Dragonair and this happened.
3.72% chance to catch it. Yeah, so I'm not gonna even go for it. I mean, unless we encounter it randomly. Excuse me? You missed the Pokemon? Do you have to use a rock? Because my lead Pokemon is above 15. Actually, wait, my lead Pokemon might not be above 15. I might be leading with Poliwag at level 10. I'm throwing a rock. Oh, that worked! Maybe, wait. Maybe you have to throw a rock. Throw another rock, screw you. Screw you, Dragonair. Stay mad. It was the most jank Dragonair capture. I don't know how that... Dude, I threw 2 rocks at it. And it didn't flee.
I still didn't understand the Safari Zone mechanics at this point and just threw 2 rocks at Dragonair to double the catch chance but also double the flee chance, which is incredibly risky. It's really not worth it at all, and I got super lucky and caught Dragonair here somehow. I kept fishing in this water until we got Dratini, then into the grass to get Execute and Rhyhorn. Our time runs out of the Safari Zone here, so I go and give Execute a Leaf Stone to evolve to Executor, then head back into the Safari Zone to get the rest of the encounters. In Area 1, we found Chansey, which is only a 1% encounter here, and has another area which is 4%. That was really lucky getting Chansey pretty early on, but the Safari Zone luck that we had will run out soon enough. We catch Tangela here, then go to the next section for Tauros and Kangaskhan, both of which are a little bit easier to get in this game than Red and Blue. That brings us to 91 Pokemon to obtain in our Pokedex for Professor Oak, and only 13 more Pokemon are needed for this section, and we still have a long ways to go. 2 of the Pokemon we still need in the Safari Zone are Scyther and Pinsir. Both are either a 4% encounter or a 1% encounter depending on which area of the Safari Zone you are in. Scyther kept fleeing from us, which was unfortunately a very common occurrence in the Safari Zone. Instead of going back into the Safari Zone when time ran out this time, I just focused on grinding up our Pokemon elsewhere and decided we can go back to the Safari Zone to reclaim Scyther and Pinsir later on. We have a lot of trainers to grind up against too, as we have access to basically the entire Kanto region at this point of the game thanks to having access to cut outside of battle, aside from the water routes, Cinnabar Island, Victory Road, Seafoam Islands, and those smaller areas. For grinding here, I focus on the trainers on the Cycling Road and then some other trainers like in the Sylph building with Team Rocket. Either way, the Safari Zone sank so much of our time that Day 5 concluded at just under 37 hours played, with me being optimistic that Day 6 will be our last day with only 2 gym badges. Day 6 of the stream was a shorter day as it only lasted about 3.5 hours as opposed to the typical 7 hours and up to even 10 hours a day that I've poured into this game. During this challenge, my full-time job was literally just playing Pokemon Yellow version, and as fun as it was still a massive grind, and quite frankly, not many other people were willing to do this, especially on a live stream, but I like having proof that this run was done fully legit on a real cartridge nonetheless, since unfortunately sometimes people like to fake these really difficult and long challenge videos. I started off Day 6 with some more grinding, mainly focusing on Dragonair, which has one of the best back sprites in Yellow version. Another big bonus of this playthrough is I got to see pretty much every Pokemon sprite in this game, and some were better than others. While grinding, this included the Sylph building, where we get a gift Lapras, then fight Jesse, James, and Giovanni, with mostly the Rhyhorn we caught in the Safari Zone. Rhyhorn is the second toughest Pokemon we have to grind at this point of the game behind Dragonair, as Rhyhorn evolves at level 42, but is a very capable Pokemon in battle at least, unless we see a Grass type or Water type, but Dragonair or the Ponytail we caught off the grind to level 40 can help against those Pokemon. After the Sylph building is freed, I head right towards the fighting dojo in Saffron City for some more grinding, then get Hitmonchan, the superior Hitmon, for Pokemon number 93. We're slowly depleting the trainers we can level up against, so I start leveling up against some trainers in the gyms, just leaving the gym leader, finishing off Day 6 with no new Pokemon or evolutions outside of the gift Pokemon. On Day 7, I just went crazy and streamed for 10 hours that day. Despite only having 2 gym badges and nearly 40 hours of game time, the end was still in sight. We made some mistakes, but I started playing more optimally and just went to the Safari Zone with a new plan and a new mindset. Since money is starting to become an issue at this point of the game, and there's no new trainers to fight to get more money, and we can't even have access to Payday as Meowth isn't in this game, and also the Payday TM can only be accessed after you get Surf, which we don't have yet, I decided to start saving the game in the Safari Zone once I got to the section where we could find the Pokemon that we needed. First was Scyther, which we got very quickly, less than 15 minutes into the stream on day 7 even. Then I found a Marowak and figure I might as well catch this instead of focusing on grinding up Cubone still. Marowak took a few more Safari Balls than expected, so it'd be safe if I exit the Safari Zone and go back in with 30 fresh Pokeballs where we find Pinsir and save again. Pinsir is the last Pokemon we need in the Safari Zone here, and it's a 4% encounter rate and it's not going to be easy. On top of the fact that Pinsir can just run away, I'll put the chances of encountering Pinsir, catching Pinsir, and having it run away on the screen here. As you can see, it's not exactly in our favor. Now, since we got Scyther in about 15 minutes, you might think that Pinsir would take around the same time, especially when considered the amount of time we already spent in this Safari Zone previously searching for these Pokemon. 30 minutes or so is a reasonable estimate for how long it would take to catch just this single Pinsir. But do you know how long it actually took me to catch Pinsir though? From the time I caught Scyther until the time that I caught Pinsir, about 2 hours had passed. I was so down bad, I even called upon Arceus to help with this hunt and finally finished the Safari Zone at the 40 hour and 37 minute mark, as Software saying the Safari Zone didn't add additional game time to the timer, but still passed about 2 hours of real time. Playing this on an actual cartridge with no speed up or any other cheats really does take a while, but it's very rewarding. This leaves us with only 8 more Pokemon in this section of the game, 2 of which are Game Corner. Well, 3 if you count Ninetales, which evolves from Vulpix in the Game Corner, which cost 1,000 coins, then the elusive Porygon costing a whopping 9,999 coins, which is the max amount of coins you can even have in your coin case. In order to get all of the coins needed for these 2 Pokemon, it'll cost roughly 220,000 Pokédollars. That's a lot of money, and we only have about 170k right now, so we're gonna have to figure something out, and this is the point where I really regret buying Repels previously and also buying some potions, which I thought would save time on grinding. And while it did save time making me not have to go to the Pokemon Center as much, it wasted money that I need so desperately at this point of the game. I also really don't want to resort to gambling on the slot machines, but if we have to, the bottom right slot machine in yellow version has better odds of winning for some reason. I get the Vulpix first and evolve with a Firestone into Ninetales, bringing us to 98 Pokemon, but we still have a long ways to go before we get Porygon. We really aren't that short on cash though, so I decided to backtrack and pick up any lost items we missed that we can then sell. I sold most of the TMs we got, learned the hard way that PaPaSea sell for 0 Pokédollars in this game, and get to a point after about 2 hours of searching for items and selling them where we can finally afford Porygon. Some of the last items I needed even required me finding super potions because I was that desperate for cash. I did some research and saw what other people were saying about the Game Corner in Generation 1, and a few people said it took over 2 hours of just playing the slot machines to win enough coins for Porygon, although you still have a chance of just losing in that case. And because I don't like to play slot machines, I played it as safe as I possibly could. I mean, just gas Flygon HG, I went to Las Vegas with him last year for TwitchCon and didn't gamble a single dollar. For now, it's back to grinding though, mainly Ponyta and Rhyhorn at this point. I experiment with some other areas to grind, mainly the routes to the east and west of Fuchsia City, but the bird Pokemon to the west of Fuchsia City are a bit too weak to make it worth foregoing the 5% Dugtrio chance in the Diglett's Tunnel, and the Pokemon to the east are mostly fast grass-type Pokemon with moves like Sleep Powder and Poison Powder, resulting in me having to heal more, and also they just one-shot our Rhyhorn. The grass types do seem to give out more experience on average compared to the Diglett's Tunnel, which my Twitch chat helped me figure out, but the time lost by being poisoned and having to go back to the Pokemon Center to heal wasn't worth it, so we go back to the Diglett's Tunnel. At level 40, Ponyta evolves into Rapidash for Pokemon number 100. I really wanted Rhyhorn to evolve first and be Pokedex entry 100 for us, as 100 is a very special number, and your mom is a special person too, and her favorite Pokemon happens to be Rhydon because of how much she loves to ride on her bike when she's grinding Pokemon in Diglett's Tunnel Pokemon Yellow version. You move slightly faster on your bikes, that means slightly faster encounters, which is definitely worth it. This puts us at about 46 hours played, with the remaining Pokemon of this section being Poliwag to Poliwhirl, then Poliwrath with a Water Stone, Goldeen to Seeking at level 33, then finally Dragonair to Dragonite at level 55. Goldeen also surprisingly has an amazing sprite in this game, and I never noticed it because who would ever use a Goldeen this much in Generation 1? After we get Seeking, which has an even more incredible back sprite by the way, that just leaves Dragonite. We stockpiled 7 rare candies at this point of the game, and I'm glad I wasn't forced to sell those rare candies for money to afford Porygon, as saving 7 levels of grinding to these rare candies will save a lot of time on leveling up Dragonair. This means we only have to level up Dragonair to level 48 instead of 55, then use the rare candies for the last few levels. This whole process took me to the 47-hour mark in 7 days, which breaks down to an average of just under 7 hours of gameplay a day. Once completing all the possible Pokédex entries at this point, we can battle just about any gym leader we want, aside from Blaine or Giovanni, of course. The doc that I've been referencing made by Mulax suggests that we fight Koga next, as battling Koga opens up the most possible encounters, as defeating him gives you access to Surf outside of battle, but I want to go in order of the gyms, so I decide to fight Lieutenant Surge first and use our Sea King to hammer away at his lone Raichu. I'm just glad I got to use Sea King in an important battle in this run, as it's one of my favorite Pokemon that I've only really ever been able to use in the Generation 3 Pokemon games. Part 4. Collecting the final badges. Yeah, I couldn't think of a clever name here, sorry. With 3 badges in our badge case, we end day 7 just after getting Squirtle from Officer Jenny. Thankfully, this is the only Pokemon we need to worry about before facing the next gym leader, Erica. We can just grind in the Diglett's tunnel with Surf, and I'm estimating that I spent at least 15 hours of this total challenge in the tunnel, if not more. Day 8 was another shorter day on Twitch for us, with the stream only lasting about 3.5 hours, since after playing Pokemon for 7 hours a day for 7 days in a row, I needed to take a small break to work on some other things. And those other things included shiny hunting in the Gen 4 Pokemon games, which, by the way, if you didn't know, the PaPaSea Extra channel is like my shiny Pokemon focused channel. Go subscribe over there for some more videos. With that like 6th plug of the video out of the way, grinding Squirtle to Wartortle took only about 20 minutes, then grinding from Wartortle at level 16 to 36 for Blastoise took about an hour. Not too bad when you can just one-shot all the Pokemon you're grinding against in the tunnel. Now with Blastoise, I make a beeline towards Erica and try to be funny and use Blastoise against her Grass-type Pokemon, but Tangela is just very bulky and gives Blastoise a very difficult time. I switch to our newly acquired Dragonite just to Hyper Beam it, then I just Hyper Beam the rest of her team. Hyper Beam is overpowered in Generation 1, since if you knock out a Pokemon with Hyper Beam, you just skip the recharge turn. Is this a bug? Is this an oversight? Was this intended maybe in Generation 1? I don't know, but that's the beauty of Generation 1. You can't tell if it was a mistake or if it was intentional. Is this a glitch or is this a feature? Who knows? The next gym we have to take on is Koga, and there's no new Pokemon obtainable until after we defeat him and get access to Surf. I don't have any funny Pokemon to use against him that are weak to poison, so I just spam Hyper Beams with our overpowered Dragonite to get the Marsh badge, allowing us to finally surf outside of battle and gain access to everything in Kanto besides the Victory Road in Elite Four. I buy some Great Balls because they're apparently better than Ultra Balls in Generation 1, at least sometimes they are, it depends on what situation you're in. Again, another reason why Gen 1 is just Gen Fun. Before catching anything new, I surf down to Cinnabar Island and resurrect our 2 fossil Pokemon, Aerodactyl, which goes right to the PC, then Omanyte, which we have to grind 10 levels from 30 to 40 where he falls into Omastar. In hindsight, getting the other fossil for Kabuto might have been more efficient for this run, as it still gets Surf just like Omastar can. However, it also gets Mega Drain, the TM given to you by Erica, which will allow it to fight against some of the water-type trainers we're going to fight around the Seafoam Island and Cinnabar Island area. Either way though, Lord Helix is cooler, so who cares? There's a few other areas we can surf now for new encounters, like north of Vermilion City for Psyduck and Golduck, with Golduck being only a 5% encounter. Surfing encounters are really slow here too, so this took a while, but it's not the last place we have to surf for encounters in. On the Silence Bridge, we can surf for a Slowpoke, then surf more for the 5% Slowbro, which took about 30 minutes to find for Pokédex entry 114. It still beats leveling up Slowpoke on our own to get to Slowbro, and luckily for us, a lot of the Pokemon that we get in this section we just catch, and there's not too much leveling for this part. The next place we can surf to is the Power Plant, and luckily we don't have to stay in the water for these encounters. These encounters in the Power Plant include Grimer, Voltorb, then later on, Electrode and Muck, and finally, Zapdos. Remember when I said that Parasect would be useful later on? Well, I used it to Stun Spore the Zapdos. I didn't have anything else to status Zapdos, but that worked out, and I even got Zapdos with our very first Great Ball throw after weakening it into the red zone for Pokemon number 119. Next, I head back to Cinnabar Island and into the mansion. Here we can get Growlithe, which I immediately evolve with the Firestone to Arcanine, then I catch another Growlithe for another in-game trade in Celadon City for a Dugong. Dugong is a rare 5% encounter in the Seafoam Islands, while Growlithe was 20% in the mansion, so this was just easier, although we still need to go to the Seafoam Islands anyway for Seal and then Articuno at the end. After the trade, I head back in the mansion for Pokemon number 123 Ditto, and end day 8 with 51 hours played. As I begin day 9 on twitch.tv/PaPaSea, sorry I gotta plug it again because even though I plug it a lot, you'd be surprised how many people come to my stream saying they had no idea that I had a Twitch channel. But on day 9, I knew that this could possibly be the final day before we become the champion of this Pokemon Yellow Professor's Oak Challenge. I continue to grind up Omanite a bit, but decide to just tackle the Seafoam Islands before evolving into Omastar. On our way to Articuno, we finally catch Seal, then I struggle figuring out a puzzle that I somehow figured out as a kid all by myself all those years ago. I couldn't find a good map to the Seafoam Islands online, so I did the only thing I know how to do in these situations when I get lost in a Pokemon game. Whip out my Pokemon Yellow, Red, and Blue strategy guide, flip over to the page on the Seafoam Islands, and follow the map to Articuno to get there in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. I lead with Parasect, which did not work nearly as well as did for Zapdos. I also realized that our team is really weak to Ice, so even though we get Articuno to just 1 HP, it might sweep us. I missed quite a few Pokeballs here, and I chuck Ultra Balls between random Pokemon fainting, as apparently Ultra Balls are better on Legendaries. Again, I still don't understand the Pokeball mechanics in this game. But the weirder thing about catching Legendary Pokemon is sometimes Pokeballs just miss Legendary Pokemon, but if the Pokeball doesn't miss, that means you'll just catch it every time. Yeah, that's Gen 1 just being Gen 1 again for you. I even brought Muck to this fight to spam Minimize, thinking it would help us give more turns throw Pokeballs, but it doesn't, just for our Omanite of all things to be able to tank hits the best from Articuno until it falls, forcing me going to Dragonite, our last Pokemon. I don't think Dragonite can take an Ice Beam from an Articuno, but luckily for us, we get on the next Ultra Ball we toss, as apparently Ultra Balls are better for Legendary Pokemon in the Red Zone. I know I just said that, but I still don't get it either, but that's Pokemon number 125. We are so close to catching every possible Pokemon we can in Yellow version for Professor Oak, then I make a silly realization after leaving the Seafoam Islands.
When did I learn Thunder Wave?
I somehow forgot that I taught Thunder Wave to our Dragonite, which would have helped a lot to catch Articuno, but at least we still caught it, right? For now, we continue to level up Lord Helix in the good old Diglett's Tunnel. This will be the last Pokemon we level up here, and after spending so much time here, I'm going to miss it. It's much more forgiving than the Viridian Forest, and maybe it's Stockholm Syndrome or something, but whatever, I don't know, I've never been to Finland anyway. Omanite finally evolves, allowing us to leave the Diglett's Cave for good. We only have a few more gyms to face, and a Dragonite with Hyper Beam, and since I'm about 15 hours past where I thought I'd be at this point of the game, I just obliterate the final 3 gyms with our Dragonite, lay waste to our Rivals Intrepid team, and then go into the Victory Road as there's no other Pokemon we had to catch for the last 3 gyms. Now in the Victory Road, the only Pokemon we need here is the final legendary bird, Moltres. Catching it and getting out of the cave didn't take too long, leading us to the Elite Four. When building a team for the Elite Four, the obvious first choice was Dragonite, because it's the highest level on the team, then has Hyper Beam, Thunderbolt, and Ice Beam to hit everything really hard. Next is Max the Pidgeot, of course, as the second highest level Pokemon we have and got us through most of the game after spending 16 hours in the forest with it. The 3 legendary birds made sense too for the team for some more offensive type diversity, and when I played Pokemon Stadium as a kid all the time, I would always pick the 3 legendary birds as my rental team. Plus, aside from these 5 Pokemon, there really isn't anything else that we need on the team. I really don't want to spend up the time to grind up a 6th Pokemon, as these 5 Pokemon should be enough, and since we're playing Pokemon Yellow version, I withdraw that level 6 Pikachu we box almost immediately at the very start of the game. Having it in our first Hall of Fame entry would be pretty cool, and I kept forgetting I was even playing Yellow version and not just Red or Blue, because not having Pikachu really threw me off. Doing this challenge did make me appreciate Generation 1 on a deeper level though, after pouring over 50 hours into it over the course of a week and a half or so. Generation 1 is far from perfect, but playing it so much and learning so many new things about it gave me a new perspective on it. For the Elite Four though, there were some funny moments, Lorelei was a bit annoying to take down, and I missed 4 fire spins in a row against Agatha with our Moltres, but Dragonite made it a cakewalk. Pikachu even got in on the action, sort of, by being sent out to die so I could heal Dragonite against Agatha, so thank you Pikachu, you did help in the final fights after all. If you want to see the full unedited Elite Four run, you can watch them on the VODs channel link in the description, or just watch them live in future runs like this on Twitch. I plan on streaming all of these difficult or tedious or just weird challenges to have proof that I did it legit, since I believe actually playing the game and putting the time out on an actual cartridge just makes these challenges cooler. Either way, once becoming the champion and impressing Professor Oak with our Pokedex, there's still 2 more Pokemon we have to capture in the Cerulean Cave. One is an elusive and powerful Pokemon that's pretty hard to get in Yellow version, and the other is the legendary Pokemon Mewtwo. Surprisingly, the powerful Lickitung can only be found in Cerulean Cave in Yellow version for Pokemon number 128, then last up is Mewtwo, the perfect candidate for our Master Ball, which is what Giovanni was trying to do all along, for Pokemon number 129, the last Pokemon we need for this Pokemon Yellow Professor Oak challenge, with just over 54 hours played over the course of 9 days. This run was honestly so much fun, and I had a great time making this video. It was a massive undertaking, but I'm really glad that I did it. I thoroughly enjoyed every step of it, even though I got frustrated at some points grinding in the forest or grinding at random points of the game, and I really want to focus this year on making content that I enjoy, rather than just content or making videos to please the YouTube algorithm. It might mean less videos overall, but the videos will be bigger and better like this one, and there will be more streams on Twitch while I'm working on these videos, including a new challenge that I already started by the time this video releases, and then there's also the extra channel and the cooler channel, which I've been uploading to a little bit more over there, but not as consistently. Now you may notice that the final counter isn't at 151. Only 129 Pokemon can be found in Yellow version, as there's some Pokemon that are only found in Red and Blue, then some trait evolutions and choice Pokemon like the other Hitmon Pokemon, the other Fossil Pokemon, and the other evolutions, as you only get 1 Eevee. I would love to be able to get all 151 Pokemon in my childhood copy of Yellow version, but first we have to play through another game that has the missing Pokemon we need so we can then trade them over to Yellow version, and I know a game that has all but 1 Pokemon we need for Yellow version, aside from Mew of course, so it looks like we'll be tackling a Professor Oak challenge of Pokemon Crystal soon, so make sure you follow me on Twitch since you'll definitely want to see this challenge live and you don't want to miss it. With all that out of the way, thank you so much for watching, have a great rest of your day, I'll see y'all next time, and bye bye.